Hello, 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 and thank you for stopping by today. So, last Friday I touched on this a little in the Gamer Weekly, and I wanted to go back to it and really kind of dig into it. There's a lot to this, and I just kind of glossed over it in about 15 seconds in the Gamer Weekly, and I really wanted to, for my own personal benefit, actually kind of research, dig into it, see what's actually going on. And I kind of have a really staunch opinion on this that I wanted to share. So this revolves around esports and the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, and some things that have been said by some of the leadership in the IOC, the desire to move esports into an Olympic venue, potentially in 2024 in Paris as a medaling event. It's just lunacy. This topic is something that we'll hear a lot of in the next coming months and the coming years leading up to the 2024 Olympics, because there is a very big push for the $1.5 billion worldwide competitive gaming industry to be included in the Olympics. The issue that stems from this, aside from the fact that esports aren't an actual sport because they're not athletic, the issue that stems from this is that the IOC says that they will not have anything that has anything to do with violence in esports included in the Olympics. So I get Call of Duty and that gets eliminated, but we're talking about Dota 2 and we're talking about StarCraft. Before we start down the road of the IOC and what they've all been saying and what that exactly means, I would like to first clearly put my position, or I guess my point of view out on this subject. Esports are not a sport. Esports are not athletic. Just because they play them on ESPN does not make them a sport. This is kind of that ultra-liberal left-wing nonsense that if you believe something, therefore it is true, and therefore everyone else has to believe that it is true because you believe it. And it's a lie. I mean, I'm fat. I can say that I'm not fat, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm fat. I can say that you have to accept me because I'm fat. That doesn't change the fact that you might not accept me. I can say that I'm fat, there's nothing that I can do about it, and it's entirely healthy, and that doesn't change the fact that those things aren't true. The fact that I say something and I believe it does not in turn actually make it truth. And it's the same with esports. You can tell me till you're blue in the face that esports are a sport. It's not a fact. That's not the reality. Like when I grew up as a child, of the 90s, of the 80s and the 90s, there was a conversation of whether golf was a sport in mainstream America. And we've come to the conclusion that yes, golf is a sport because it requires a certain amount of athleticism to play at a top level. That's not to say that every golfer is like in fit, perfect shape. No, but neither is every defensive lineman in the NFL. Shape does not have anything to do with whether or not you're athletic and whether or not what you're doing is athletic. But I can most assuredly guarantee you that sitting on the sofa has nothing to do with athleticism, unless you're recovering from an injury that you got while playing a sport. Now on to where I think esports originated from, and it really squarely kind of lies on ESPN. I noticed this phenomenon a couple years ago where Dota and League of Legends became really big all of a sudden, and we started seeing castings on ESPN2 and ESPN University. And I honestly believe that ESPN and other people in the sporting world needed something more to sell us, and so they tried to create something that doesn't exist. They tried to say, well, we're going to play League of Legends on ESPNU because these guys are student athletes. Yeah, sure they are. Yep, student athletes. See, I play Forza 3 on the weekends. I'm a race car driver. That's what I tell my friends, my coworkers at work. I'm like, yeah, gonna go hit the track this weekend. No, that doesn't happen. That's not an actual thing. That doesn't actually get told because nobody would actually believe it because it's not reality, because I'm not a freaking race car driver because I play Forza 3 any more than I'm an athlete because I play Wii golf. I'm the next Tiger Woods on the Wii. So now that I've laid out my sarcastic riddled ideology behind why esports isn't a sport and therefore shouldn't be included in the Olympics, I'm going to move on to what the actual IOC has said, which is just a big pile of something. So back in August of 2017, Thomas Bach, who is the president of the International Olympics Committee, was quoted by the South China Morning Post. And I'm going to read the quote exactly, just so that I get it 100% correct. And this is what he said about esports. He said, "We want to promote non-discrimination, non-violence, and peace among people. This doesn't match with video games, which are about violence, explosions, and killing." The IOC is currently working very closely with Alibaba and Alisports, their esports affiliate, because Alibaba is one of the biggest sponsors of the Olympics up until I think 2026 or 2024. Their branch of esports, All News, their CEO was quoted by Bloomberg as saying, and I quote, "That's why for the future development of esports, we will focus more on titles that actually are related to sports instead of games that focus on violence and slaughter." End quote. So there's 2 points here that I really, really want to hammer home about this whole entire argument that the IOC is making and why it's factually and theoretically inaccurate to eliminate Dota or League of Legends or StarCraft from the Olympics and focus on things that are sports related. First of all, it's sports related. It's not sports. In your own argument, you have precluded, in a logical person's mind, the competition of esports in the Olympics. You said that these things are emulations of. So we're going to have FIFA 2024 in the 2024 Olympics in Paris as a medal event, while we actually have real soccer players playing real soccer with a real ball on a real field in a real stadium competing for medals. For real. Emulation of the sport is now a sport. So that's the first issue that I have with what they're saying. That is not a plausible argument for what they're trying to do. The second issue that I have with what the IOC is saying, if Dota 2 is so violent and so disturbing to people and such a bad example, and it's something that's not inclusive, it's, to quote him, non-discriminatory, non-violence, and peace among people. So Dota 2 is not promoting that. But fencing is, an emulation of killing another human being with a saber is. The glorification of weapons through fencing, javelin throwing, shooting with actual real guns, with live ammunition. What else? Oh, archery. So these are all things that glorify weapons that we include in the Olympics. We include sports that glorify the use of force in besting one's opponent to physically damage them through violence. Boxing, taekwondo, judo, freestyle wrestling. These things hurt the opponent. That is the point of the game. That is how you win, is to hurt the opponent. So if we're going to make some argument, some semantical argument about how RTS games are too violent to promote peace among people, I seriously think we need to look at the violent things that we actually have in the, it's not even sugar-coated. Dota is something that doesn't exist. It'll never exist. It is an entire fantasy. What you see on the screen is an emulation of players that don't exist in any world that we know of, beating each other up. And then we have actual human beings doing something that we actually know, actually hitting and punching each other. But the video game's the violent peace destroyer, and the judo is the peace bringer. So I think the IOC is just way, way, way off base. I think ESPN is incredibly off base for even pushing this kind of garbage on us. And now that I've alienated video game players everywhere, I'll say goodnight. Until next time.